It's race week, which means I have a lot of things to fix and prepare on the bike. A lot of things to get organized before next weekend, which gives me the perfect opportunity to talk about tools, specifically bike tools and the way I organize them. I have this wall organized to the point where I know exactly where everything is that I need. If I need to fix something on the bike, I can immediately think of what tool I need, reach behind me, grab it, and know exactly where it is, and it has its own spot on the wall. At races, I kind of just grab things I think I'm going to need off the wall, throw them in a bag, take them with me. It's not as organized. It's not as efficient. And oftentimes at races, when I have to fix things, it's more time sensitive. So I was at one of my favorite stores, Harbor Freight, and found basically a Pelican case, like you see all the fanciest mechanics toolboxes made out of, for $60. I had the case plenty big enough, and it comes with the foam. This shadow foam, if you buy just individual sheets of it, can be upwards of $50 a sheet. This whole case was $60. So I will be able to completely upgrade and renovate my race weekend tool setup. And I'm going to take you through my thought process of this project and the way I'm going to approach it. So I'm an expert in designing for a user's needs. So I'm going to take you through my thought process of how I'm going to design myself the perfect toolbox. So we'll nail down exactly what I need it to be so that it is as functional and as efficient to use as possible. We'll also optimize the amount of space and the amount of storage that it has. So anything that I find essential that's on the wall behind me will either live in the toolbox also on the road or have a duplicate that lives in the toolbox. So that anything I need to do that I could do here, I should also be able to do at a race. And it's all going to be specific for this bike. Step one, I need to completely disassemble, clean and re-grease, and then reassemble this bike. Total teardown. We're going to use that as a case study to do my research, my design user research for the needs that this toolbox might have. Here's the setup. Got the bike in the stand. Tools. I've got this black mat is going to be for all of the parts I pull off the bike so that I can keep them organized and not lose anything, especially small nuts and bolts, small bits. Then this space will be for where I leave the tools. Every time I pull a tool off of the tool frame, off of the wall, it'll get placed here. And I'm going to set up, hold on. Now I have a grid. As soon as I use a tool, I'll pull it off the wall and put it in this first space. Then the second time I use it, I'll move it over and over and over and over and over. So if a tool gets used 6 times or more, it'll land in this bottom quadrant. If a tool only gets used once, it'll live here. And then I'll get to see not only what got used for this bike, but how often and how many times it got used. That way I can prioritize the location and the organization of the most important tools, and then maybe not be as concerned about where the ones on the bottom live. All right, let's get started. We know these are going to be the most important tool in the toolbox. I have a duplicate set that is going to live front and center in the toolbox. I'm not going to bother tracking how often I use which dimension because they're all going to live together in this set. That'll also just give me more space freed up to track the rest of the tools and how often I'm using everything else. This bike's in rough shape. It needs some love. Long overdue. spec in one piece, but it's beautiful outside. My e-bike's fully charged. I'm gonna take a break. We'll come back to this tonight. For now, let's go ride some jumps. We did a lot of work to this bike. Outside of truing wheels and swapping tires, I did everything on this bike that I think I would need to do at a race, unless something insane happens. Every tool I used got sorted into the hierarchy of frequency of use so that I can now use that to optimize the organization of my new toolbox. Check it out. So in the I used it once column, we have my master link pliers. I took the chain off. That's one use. Small torque wrench, zip ties, brush, bleed cup, used a couple times. Hammer, pliers, scissors, got used about 3 times. Then we get into things that I used a lot. So torque wrench got used frequently. All my pivot bolts in my frame, all my fork triple clamp bolts got touched with the torque wrench. Box cutter is a very useful tool that I used a ton. Pick was used often for cleaning stuff out and cleaning out bolts mostly, but just a good tool to have at the ready. Rags, grease, and cutters go in the used very much pile. These pliers and those pliers I tried to reach for a lot, but I realized these are terrible. So these are gonna get thrown away. And I got better wire cutters for cutting like cables and housing and things. Those will get through any kind of cable, housing, brake line way easier. And then some flush cut pliers for all the zip ties and little things around the bike. These will get used frequently. These will get used occasionally. So I'd put these like here and these like here, which brings me to this. Allen wrenches we knew were gonna be up top. Those, you touch everything with hex keys. This bike in particular, T30 is gonna be most of the pivot bolts on this frame. And then T25 for all your rotors and smaller Torx bolts. Those are the highest priority. So that's everything I used. There are certain things left that I need quick access to at races, like tire pressure gauge goes in the high importance range. Shock pump will get used every single day at a race. That goes highest importance. Spoke wrench needs to go. Occasionally somebody will need to cut bars, so we'll bring that to in case somebody needs to take off a cassette. We can put these in the low priority bin. That gets us pretty close. I'm also going to include these tire levers that have a built-in valve core remover tool. So they all fit real nice together. So I'll bring these instead of my Pedro's levers. I don't use tire inserts, so I don't need the sealant injector. 3-ways are redundant because I have Allen keys. I'm going to cautiously say that this is the majority of the tools I would want to have with me on a race weekend. Now, let's look at the toolbox. So this is the exact table that I use at races. And this is exactly how much space I will have to work with. If I have this toolbox, I can either have it open on one half of the table with place for parts and stuff, or I can have it centered and pull out multiple layers. These would house the tools and have all my tools laid out like this and have space up front. Either way, plenty of space. So I've got the 3 layers laid out. Layer 1, layer 2, layer 3. I'm going to start with my most frequently used tools, my highest priority tools, and I'm going to start filling as many as possible onto layer 1 first, and then I'm going to work my way backwards. Highest priority, second priority, third, fourth, fifth priorities, and fill things in from highest priority, middle priority, lowest priority, trying to fit as much as possible up top for quick access. I literally got every tool except a pocket knife into this stack. So top layer, the things I use the most. These snips, because you go through a lot of zip ties, changing stuff on and off, even number plates and stuff at races. Spoke wrench, pressure gauges, measuring tape for either adjusting cockpit stuff. I have everything measured down to the millimeter, or setting sag, things like suspension. This is useful extremely. Then I've got my 2 Torx wrenches that I use frequently, tire levers, valve core tool, and my regular hex wrenches. That does 70 to 80% of the things on my bike that I would ever need to do. If I need to go deeper, I just pull 1 layer off, and then I've got torque wrench, cable cutters, pair of scissors, master link pliers, low torque wrench, and a box cutter. Again, with the 4 most common sizes of bits I'll use for the torque wrench. And then bottom layers, the things I'll use rarely, if ever, but are nice to have, like cassette tool, a monkey wrench, a hammer, pipe cutters, and a bleed cup in case I need to bleed brakes. So that completes. This is the bottom layer, so everything's gonna fall out. All of that fits into here. Bottom layer. Middle layer. Top layer. Just like that. Ready for race week. So there you have it. There is my to-go toolbox for all of my tools for that bike. Now, by looking specifically at my needs and the way I work on this bike, and this bike specifically, it's the perfect purpose-built tool case for my specific need on race weekends. And that applies to everything I do as a designer and product development, professionally, personally, hobbies, and whatnot. You dive in, you look at the specific user's needs, and then figure out how to solve as many of those minute little problems and nuances as possible. I got more stuff to go get done before we can go race and head to Windrock, but toolbox is done, bike's ready to go. I'm calling this one here. I'll see y'all next week.